Let's go on to your church plant, your specific church.
Mm-hmm.
What was the vision that brought this about? Like, what is your kind of overall mission and vision there at the church? And how did it get started? I mean, you talked a little bit about it, but fill in the gaps there.
Yeah. No, we started in 2013, 11 people. And I come out of a traditional Pentecostal charismatic church that I've been at for probably 8 years before we planted, and loved that church. That church has been incredibly kind and gracious to me, but I saw that there were some gaps. I saw that there were some gaps in people's ability to come to that church and get plugged in, or come to that church and hear a clear gospel message, or come to that church and be discipled. And so as I was there and understood, man, God's called me to church planting, there were some things that were coming out to fill a gap that I saw in the current context. And then one of the things that I always ask, I went to a predominantly African-American elementary school, African-American middle school, African-American high school, HBCU the first year of college, and then went to Florida Atlantic University, which is one of the most diverse universities in the state of Florida. And so I always ask the question, going into a predominantly white seminary and being a predominantly white church planting network, what does it look like for the gospel to be big enough to have all ethnicities present, particularly looking at Revelations 21, Revelations 9, where you see that the kingdom of God is the kingdom of God will be diverse. Mm-hmm. You will have people from every tongue, language, kind, all worshiping together, not segregated in the kingdom and having certain parts, but all worshiping together, the Lamb. And so that was always something that I wanted to see happen from even before we planted the church. And so our core values is, man, we want to be gospel-centered in our language, in our preaching, in the way we lead. We want to see disciples be made. We want to see the city impacted, so we're city positive. And then lastly, we're multi-ethnic. That's a value for us. That's not an aspirational value. It started as an aspirational value, to be honest. It was like, well, we want it. We don't see it, but we want it. And I think what's cool is now we're seeing that diversity play out in our church, and it's exciting. It's really, really exciting.
What would you say is the ethnic makeup of your church right now?
So Brian LaRich defines a diverse church as 80% one group and 20% the other. I would say, and it depends because there's so many ethnicities in South Florida, but we're probably around 75% still majority African-American, depending on how you define that, and then 25% other.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's great. Yeah. Do you think, and I guess my biggest question is, a lot of it depends on demographic, because I'm new to Florida. We've been here a little over a year now, and where we're living on the west side of Florida, which is the best side, is what they told me. But it's a pretty diverse area. I mean, there's pockets here and there of different ethnicities, but how much of that? Because I see it as a priority, and maybe you can talk about priority as well, but how much of the way that your church looks is reflective of the demographic, and how can we, so for example, my church is majority white. Mm-hmm. We just started anyway, so, we'll see what happens. But how much of it depends on the demographic, and how can we who want to have more of an ethnically diverse congregation go about doing that within the demographic?
Yeah. Just tell my story. Something happened year 2 for us. One of my mentors, still my mentor, Tommy Kiedis, president of Capital Seminary in Pennsylvania, when he was still pastor of Spanish River Church, took me to Memphis, Tennessee, to Brian LaRitz's Kainos conference. And I was all on being multi-ethnic and, man, seeing the gospel and being diverse and all that jazz. And one of the things God made evident to me on that trip was, Rodney, multi-ethnicity is not the hill that I've called you to die on. And this is important.
That's interesting.
Because some people, guys I talk to, particularly my white brothers and sisters, they hold being multi-ethnic to this ultimate view. And here's what I hear my brothers say: if I'm not multi-ethnic, I'm not successful.
Right.
And I completely disagree with that. I think we need to be incredibly clear being incredibly clear that the gospel of Jesus Christ is what we're called to lift high, that we are who we are because of what Christ has done. And we need to embrace that and lean into that. And so that's the first thing. It can't be the ultimate hill, but it is an outflowing of our gospel realities. And so that means for me first, and I tell guys, forget the church. Like, look at your life first. How diverse is your life? How diverse are your closest relationships? How diverse is your dinner table? Are your kids used to seeing other kids that don't look like them? Like, we had a birthday party for my second daughter, Zion, and I swear, I looked around one day, I'm like, golly, it's our birthday party that I'm paying for, and you're the only chocolate thing in the room. Something wrong. Like something is wrong. But like, that's like, the reality has to be, this is how your life flows.
Yeah.
And there's a continuity that flows from your life to your leadership, to your preaching, to your church.
Yeah.
And the decisions that make and how things go. So my view has always been natural. Once I stopped fighting for diversity, I started seeing it.
Interesting. Yeah. And I've heard, I don't know how true this is, but they say in relation to age, I don't know if this applies to ethnicity too, but the church will become like its pastor. So when it comes to age, like, I think it's like 10 years, average age is 10 years younger than the pastor or something like that.
Yeah.
So we've got a guy south of us at Calvary Chapel in Sarasota, and his name's Carl. He's in his 70s, lead pastor. But his church is a younger church. Like, there's young people coming, and he said he had to really be intentional about kind of breaking that. I don't know if you want to call it a stereotype or if you want to call it like a status quo, but he had to be really intentional with the age thing about breaking that. So you're saying just because you don't have that diversity, that doesn't mean you're failing, right. But at the same time, you got to say, what are some of the things that we can do to become more diverse intentionally?
And yeah, I think again, it starts with that pastor. If it's an age thing that you're trying to break, like my mentor, another mentor that I had, he was always the oldest person in the room, but he hung around people in college, fresh out of college, young couples. Like, that was his demographic. And if you want to see that, you got to be comfortable there. But I think what I try to push against is all of the gimmicks, the hiring practice, the inauthentic hiring practices where that does damage to the church and does damage to the minority guy that's stepping into that role.
That's right,
who feels
he's always in the pictures in the church, like brochures and stuff.
Come on, man, you're the only color person there.
It's like, I've seen that guy in another picture.
Yeah.